Welcome to Student Connections. Our students connecting with our community.
Hi, I'm Mason Damon. Today on M6 Television, here we have Senator Dan Lauwers with us. Senator Lauwers, thank you for coming down.
My pleasure, Mason.
I know that time is precious for you, so we're really appreciative that you came to Marysville for the interview.
Oh, yeah.
So before we touch on your job as state senator, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm a Quebec high school grad, so I was raised on a dairy farm. Went to Michigan State University, worked for Michigan State University for a couple of years, actually on the west side of the state, as an agricultural extension agent, so really adult education on farm issues. From there, I went to Washington, D.C. Congressman Bill Schuette was serving on the Ag Committee at that time and wanted someone who understood Michigan agriculture. So I went out there, that would have been 1987. Ronald Reagan was president back then.
Yeah.
And I ended up moving from that job to becoming a lobbyist for the dairy industry. And having grown up on a dairy farm, seemed like a real natural thing to do, to advocate for our state's dairy farmers. And
Yeah,
our
you know,
state's
the
dairy
announce.
farmers.
Yeah.
Right. So, but from there, we had our first son in Alexandria, and Virginia, and the Kellogg Foundation offered me a job, and we were happy to move back to Michigan with this prospect of raising a family. We really wanted to get back to our roots. My wife is from Yale, and that's where we live now. And after a couple of years of traveling the world with the Kellogg Foundation, spent time in almost every state and abroad.
Wow.
Felt that I wanted to have a job that I would be home at night. I was on the road 5 nights a week, gone 5 nights a week with 2 young kids. That was too much. And so that's when we bought the grain elevator in Emmett.
Okay.
And that allowed me to do what I wanted to do, which was be home to be a part of my kids growing up. So after a number of years of that, someone asked me to run for office. Actually, it was Bill Schuette again. When he ran for Attorney General, he asked me if I would help him with his campaign in St. Clair County, and I said sure. And then from that, kind of led to people talking me into running for state government. So here we are today, now a state senator.
Okay, so that's how you kind of got into into politics from in your job before. So could you describe the transition from state senator state representative to state senator, and was the transition different from what you thought it would be?
Somewhat, and here's where the difference lies. So the work is very much the same. You're working as a legislator. You're representing your constituents. The difference is the volume. Moving from representing about 90,000 people to representing 3 times that number of people, and the part of the thumb that we're in here is more densely populated to the south, but much more sparsely populated to the north. So the Senate district is about 4 times the size of the House district. There's been days that I've traveled from Anchor Bay to Port Austin.
Yeah, so you're making a lot of
it's actually, it takes longer to get from one end of our district to the Senate District 25 than it does to drive from my home to Lansing.
Really?
So Lansing's a 2-hour drive. It takes more than 2 hours drive from one end of our district to the other. So that the distance that you have to cover, the number of people and organizations to work with, and then same thing in Lansing. Now I serve on 7 different committees. In the House, you would serve on maybe 3, 4 at most. In the Senate, you're serving on 7. So the time is really become more compressed during the work week when we're in Lansing. And for example, this morning I was down in Shelby Township having breakfast with farmers from Macomb County before coming here. So I'll end the night in Goodland Township, meeting with other people. So it's
so you really are doing a lot of traveling.
A lot of
around.
travel in this job, absolutely.
So if I'm right, you served 3 terms and 6 years as state representative, with the last 2 as House Majority, which is really impressive.
Yeah, Majority Floor Leader is a position, great job. You're really in charge of all the committees and the transactions that take place on the floor. So I always described it as an air traffic controller in the legislature. You got to make sure that there's runway available for people to run their bills and have the time allowed for everything that needs to be done. And then you help direct some of those priorities. You can never do everything you want to do. So at some point you have to prioritize, and that was part of that job.
So could you tell us more about your experience as an air traffic controller?
Sure. You know, typically I would meet with most of the chairs of the organization of the legislature each week to kind of make sure that they were staying on track and they were maintaining the priorities that the caucus had agreed to pursue, because time moves by so quickly when you're on a 2-year election cycle that it's very easy for people to get distracted and pulled in different ways. You know, nobody brings bad ideas to the legislature. It's just there's so many ideas you have to prioritize.
You kind of have to delegate which ones are worth, you know, worth looking into more.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have to keep people on task to get it done.
Okay. So do you think that your experiences as House Representative prepared you for state senator?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a big advantage there. We have a number of senators serving currently that had never served in a state office. Some of them maybe had never any elected office. And I think they're doing just fine. But there's an advantage to having been exposed to the work, to the workplace, to a lot of the people that are involved. No different than starting a new job or going to a new school. You know, you're dealing with all new people and all new places. And so having had that 6 years of experience is a definite plus.
So how do you think that being, how is being state senator different than serving in the House?
You know, I think the real difference is just that volume. There's many more people to get to. If you think just, for example, about the number of schools, we have, you know, when I was working in 81st District, all the schools I had to take care of were within St. Clair County, and not even all the schools of St. Clair County. And now I have all of Sanilac County, all of Huron County, and part of Macomb County. So if I were to do an interview like we're doing this morning at each of the schools in the district, I probably would never have the time to do that, just because there's so many. Where before I really could. I could get around to everyone.
Yeah. So could you describe one of your typical work days then?
Boy, I'd like to pull out my calendar and show you.
Sure, it's filled.
It's pages long, and so a typical work day is get to Lansing usually by 7:30. There's usually 2 breakfast meetings to go to, and generally those are political in nature. Those are fundraisers where someone's having a breakfast to raise money for their next election. So it's a 2-hour drive for me. So usually got to get out of the house by 5:30 in the morning.
Really?
In this winter, of course, you'd add a half hour or another hour to that, you know, if you knew what the weather was going to be. So there were some 3-hour drives this past winter, but 2 hours to get there. 7:30, you'll hit 2 breakfasts before your first meeting at 8 o'clock. Most of our meetings are in half-hour lengths. Committees are 1 hour, so usually I would do the 2 breakfasts, probably have a half-hour meeting, then go to committee for an hour. Immediately after that, we usually would probably go to session. Our session starts at 10 a.m. There might be another half-hour meeting in between there. And then after a session, it's more of the same, either back-to-back half-hour meetings in the office or somewhere else, or another committee. Usually by 4 or 5 o'clock, the evening meetings start. And what I mean by that is, let's say there's like the farmers I met with this morning. Farm Bureau might be in town and having their annual legislative day. That was just a week ago. It was Ag Day at the Capitol. So they're having a legislative reception that starts at 4 or 5 o'clock. So then you would go to that. Normally, I think I was just looking at the calendar tomorrow. I think there's 2 or 3 of those.
Okay.
Normally there's 2 or 3 of those to get to in the evening, and then there's also the fundraiser evening receptions that happen as well. I do them myself, and we all try to support each other. So whether it's a trade organization or an interest group that's in town or someone having a fundraiser event, generally we'll take you out to 5, 6, even 7. But then it depends if there's something back here in the district. So last Thursday, the Blue Water Pregnancy Center was having their annual fundraiser meeting, dinner. So we had to be back in time Thursday. So I got back just in time to grab my wife from the house and head straight over to Solitude Links, and we enjoyed that. So you balance those things. But that's the typical Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are very full days, and I usually know by Thursday night that we've put in a pretty good week.
Oh yeah, I thought I had a busy schedule too, so that's pretty crazy.
I'll show you the phone after.
All right. So now that you've had some time to settle into your new roles as state senator, what do you think the 3 biggest problems facing Michigan is right now?
The high cost of auto insurance is probably number 1 on my list. Nothing would do more to help people directly, every family out there. You're at an age where I'm sure your parents are going through the high cost of having a teenage driver.
Oh yeah.
At one point in my family, we had 3 of those. We're
wow.
down to 1
Yeah.
now, and it's unbelievable what we pay for insurance. So that's something I sit as the vice chair on insurance and banking, and I think we're going to get there. We got to bring some choice to the marketplace. That's the problem. The difference between Michigan's insurance, auto insurance, and everyone else's is that, and every other insurance in your life, really, you decide what coverage you want. How much do you want to cover your house, your health, how much do you want to be insured for? That's an individual question. In Michigan, we don't give you that choice. We say you must buy this insurance and only this insurance. And quite frankly, we've priced a lot of people right out of the market. So that's probably number 1. Number 2 is auto-related too, and that's the roads. And everybody's concerned about the roads, and I am as well. And we've worked hard on that over the years. We've made a lot of progress. When I came to Lansing, we were spending about $3 billion a year on roads. That's what we've always spent. Today we're spending $5 billion. Wow. And we're on target to continue to improve that. And so I hope we can continue the path that we have, which is by living within our means, paying down our debts. We've made Michigan more attractive to employers, to families, to everyone. And so we've stemmed the flow of out-migration of our graduates, which is an important thing. Yeah. The whole reason I ran for office was to try and keep my kids home, I guess, or at least have the opportunity that they could choose to stay home. That's been happening, and if we could fill I think it's over 800,000 jobs are available today in Michigan. If we could fill those jobs, we would generate the money I think we need to close the gap on our roads. And so I hope we continue that path of continue to improve opportunities here in Michigan, and that would in itself will generate more opportunity to fund more projects like roads. And third would be infrastructure in the thumb and all of northern Michigan. And when we say northern Michigan, we all like to use our hands, right? So everything above the knuckles is more rural in our state. Yeah. What I've noticed in that area is that internet connectivity is becoming one of the most important infrastructure issues that we need to deal with. The reason is, many of you will leave Marysville High School and go to college. I can guarantee at college you're going to have great internet service. Oh yeah. People experience that and they move back to the thumb and they don't have that. My daughter would come home from Michigan State and she would throw her hands up and scream at us and say, "I hate your internet." And we're like, "What's wrong, dear? It's fine when it works, but it doesn't always work, and that's the issue." So we've got to change that. The only way we're going to be able to keep, I think the only way we're going to keep talent in the rural areas of Michigan, especially the thumb and up north, is to have internet connectivity that's on par with what we have in the urban areas. Yeah. If you've got that, you can have just about any job, right? Telecommuting is becoming more and more popular, so we can have more job opportunities and a better chance of recruiting and retaining, I think, our talent in our rural areas. So, and then we have, of course, the other infrastructure. We talked about the roads. Drainage is important, natural gas, adequate three-phase electric. Most people don't think about electricity because it's so automatic, but we recently had a business that was looking to locate in the area, and they couldn't get adequate electricity. It just happened to be right where they picked it, that it was an area that it was difficult to supply them adequate three-phase electric, and so they chose a different location, and miss those kind of opportunities.
So as a state senator, what types of roles do you play to help fix those issues? A lot of it, I guess, an advocate and a mediator. Those are probably the two things. You advocate for those people back home for the good ideas or the best ideas, for the highest priorities.
and solutions that you think are going to work. And then you spend a lot of time as a mediator. Everybody comes there committed to doing a great job, but we often have different approaches to that. On roads, we often hear people from the urban areas talking about we want to have road funding go by per mile, and what they're talking about, lane miles. So a 6-lane highway would get, let's say, 6 per mile, and a 2-lane highway, as we have most of our roads out here. If you look at Huron or Gratiot, a 2-lane highway, you would only get 2. So what they're advocating for is, retaining more money. So the people, again, below the knuckles kind of like the idea of lane miles. The people above the knuckles do not like that idea because they would not get near as much road funding. So everybody wants to fix the roads, but there we have people that are equally committed to success of the state in the future, advocating two opposing views. So you really have to spend a lot of time as a mediator and a consensus builder.
Okay. So recently, Governor Whitmer, am I correct, proposed a 45-cent to gallon gas tax. How do you think that'll affect roads versus toll roads?
Well, I think a gas tax would be punitive to the people that live further north. If you think about it, you often hear people talk about, I hear them advertising 10,000-mile leases a year. I could never, I'd have to have 5 cars if I was allowed to only 10,000 miles per car, because I drive about 50,000 miles a year. Now, I know that's high because of my job, but without my job, I drove 25,000 miles a year. So there's a real difference in how something like a gas tax would impact somebody that lives in a rural area versus someone that can actually buy a car and put less than 10,000 miles a year on it. We're all using the roads. We all depend on the roads.
Yeah.
It's not just the road you use to get somewhere. It's the roads that are used to bring things to you, too. So,
yeah.
In the city, things are more convenient, but that all gets there through the roads. You just don't have to drive as far to get it. But they did, those strawberries that came from Florida or California used the roads to get there often. So
it's not always about the transportation. It's about how they get there and Okay.
Yeah. So I think that I would. And then we talk about toll roads, and Michigan has a special challenge as a peninsula state when it comes to toll roads. Most of the states you see toll roads in, you got to pass. You can pass through them to get somewhere. Michigan really only has one road that is a pass-through, and that would be I-69 from the bridge right here to Chicago area. That one road would be a possibility, but that's not gonna solve the issue, I guess, of road funding. So if we weren't a peninsula, it would be much more feasible to consider toll roads. But because you drive to Michigan, you don't drive through Michigan very often. So and driving through is important when you're going to have tolls. So I think the real answer is kind of what I talked about earlier, and that's just let's continue to grow Michigan. Let's grow the pie bigger rather than try to reslice the pie. Okay.
So we've touched on a lot of things. What do you think is most rewarding being a state senator?
I always tell people when they ask me what it's like or what do you do, I tell people that if you like helping people and solving problems, this is a great job for you.
Okay.
And that's really where the reward is.
Yeah.
That's what we do all day. Everybody talks about legislation when you're a legislator. That is half of the job. The other half of the job is serving your constituents, sitting here doing this interview with you, solving the problems for people that call up and say, hey, my unemployment's screwed up and I need your help.
Okay.
That's the other half of the job, and that's often where you have even more impact.
Okay. We've touched on a lot of things as I said. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Only that it's a tremendous pleasure to serve the people, and it's a rare opportunity. There's only 38 senators, and to be one of them and work for the people of Michigan. It's a great opportunity, and I highly recommend it for anyone that's sitting out there watching us that thinks, I wonder if I should do that. Personally, I never wondered if I should do this. I never thought about doing it. It's just kind of the way things went that I ended up here. But I'm glad I did, because I enjoy serving people, and that's what you're doing in this job.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm really grateful that you took the time out of your day to actually, come in and do this interview at Marysville High School. So thank you.
Okay.
It was
My
a pleasure to meet you. I'm Mason Damon with Senator Lauwers on Channel M6, your hometown station.